It's 2 o'clock.
Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Here.
Rowe.
Here.
Begley.
Here.
Harding. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remarks by Councilmember Begley.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everybody here today. And we have the 4th of July coming up this weekend, so it's going to be a nice long weekend for many of us. We want to thank our first responders that are going to be working 24/7, protecting us, as well as my company, OPPD, as well as MUD. They keep the lights on, the gas flowing, the water running. So let's remember the people that are working while we're out celebrating the 4th of July, and they're going to be keeping us safe. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Omaha City Council. We appreciate you being here today. As a courtesy to those in attendance, please turn off your cell phones or turn them to vibrate. And we do have a presentation today by Councilmember Begley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Little surprise here for everybody. Is James Patrick Begley in the house here? I see him back there. Whereas James Patrick Begley has distinguished himself as a hardworking and dedicated employee and public servant for the city of Omaha, faithfully serving the city of Omaha for 15 years since 2006 as a compensation manager. And whereas James is committed to helping his community through his stellar work ethic, managing class specifications, job studies, salary plans, and compensation surveys, and administering policy with a sense of fairness, gaining a reputation amongst colleagues as a steady, dependable coworker and friend who takes pride in his work and community. And whereas Begley graduated from the University of Nebraska, Omaha, earning a Master's of Public Administration, Local Government Administration degree in 1997, additionally earning his professional in Human Resources credential, which prepared him for a life of public service, positively impacting society through his leadership, improving the management of public and nonprofit organizations. And whereas James was elected to the office of President of the Board of Directors of Metropolitan Utilities District, where since 2013, he has earned the trust and confidence of customer owners by championing their priorities, needs, and concerns, and proactively engaged in open dialogue with members of the Omaha City Council, sharing his expertise on issues relating to labor and employment relations, planning, land use, environmental and economic development to build cooperation relationships. And whereas, as the youngest child of the late Dan and Mary Kay and brother to Brian, Mark, and Danny, James Patrick Begley learned early in his life at 3432 Webster Street on the family basketball court that those older brothers were relentless, but the schoolings he received served him well in his life as a father to Thomas, Michael, and Kate, husband to Rebecca, and public servant. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Omaha City Council hereby expresses its sincere appreciation and gratitude for Mr. Begley's dedication and commitment to the city of Omaha, and congratulates his professional advancement, wishing him continued success in his future endeavors as director of the William Brennan Institute for Labor Studies at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. In witness whereof, the Omaha City Council has caused the official seal of the City of Omaha to be affixed on this 29th day of June, 2021.
And Jim, Jim, come on down. It's probably the nicest thing your brother has said about you in a long time, but if you want to have a rebuttal, please take the microphone.
Well, thank you for the surprise, and Deb and my wife, my boss Deb Sander, and my wife Rebecca, and twin sons Michael and Thomas are here. Our daughter Kate is working today. So I've spent the last few weeks telling every city official I know, as you just said, Mr. President, that my brother Danny is a really hard guy to get along with, and I have to take back all the words I've been telling people about Danny. In all seriousness, that was incredibly kind. Thank you. And it's been a great honor to be employed with the city for 15 years. And I've been before you a number of times. And I've got to know each of you on a professional and personal level. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've learned from each of you. And I've learned a lot from the people I've worked with in the city of Omaha. And I'm on to quite an adventure at UNO. And I'm 48 years old. I'm getting outside of my comfort zone a little bit, but with opportunities like that comes great growth. So thank you so much for accommodating me all these years in front of you. And Danny, thank you very much.
And I'd say thank you for your service too.
Thanks.
Appreciate your service on behalf of the city and also as an elected official, and wish you good luck in your next adventure. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Item 6, a resolution to approve the final plat for Jean Leahy Mall, replat 3, located northeast of 10th and Farnham Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and the vote on item number 6 are today. We'll have the applicant first, I believe, by Zoom, Mr. Koenig.
I'm trying to unmute him.
We're working on getting you off mute there. I'll give you one more second. Okay, looks like that
Here we-
works.
Okay, Chris Koenig, HDR Engineering, 1917 South 67th Street, on behalf of the applicant.
Great, thank you. Here to answer questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any proponents on item number 6? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Second. Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 6 is approved, 7-0. Item 7, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Maple 180 with a waiver to section 53-914, Green Corners, located northeast of 180th Street and West Maple Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. We'll hear from the applicant first, Mr. Jobin.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. With me today is Kyle Hasse of E&A Consulting, the consulting engineers on this particular project. This is a 28-acre mixed-use development at the northeast corner of 180th and West Maple Road. There's 7 lots, obviously, for commercial mixed-use type uses. We're simply here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any proponents on number 7 today? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 7 is approved, 7-0. Item 8, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Majestic 178, located southeast of 177th and State Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. Applicant, please.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Mark Johnson. My address is 11440 West Center Road. Appearing today on behalf of the applicant, Celebrity Homes, just here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. And yeah, can you turn them, is it a volume up? Okay.
Speak louder.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah.
Better. I know Larry was a little quiet too, but Mark
Yeah.
Johnson, again, 11440 West Center Road, on behalf of the applicant, Celebrity Homes.
Great, thank you. Any proponents on number 8 today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 8 is approved, 7-0. Item 9, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow large group living in an R7 district with a request for reasonable accommodation located at 2052 and 2054 Deer Park Boulevard. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. We'll hear from the applicant, Mr. Rowland.
Good afternoon. Thank you, members of the City Council. Lawrence Rowland, Gooseman Law Firm, 17838 Burke Street, Suite 250, Omaha, Nebraska, 68118. On behalf of the applicant, Heather Kirk, as Executive Director of Santa Monica, Inc., here to answer any questions on this special use permit.
Great, thank you. Any proponents in the audience today? See none. Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 9 is approved, 7-0. Item 10, to consider a Class C liquor license application for Hotel Deco located at 1504 Harney Street. A is communication and support.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. The applicant, please.
Good afternoon. Jay Klein, representing our hotel, here to answer any questions. Address 1040 Essex Court, Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you. Any proponents today? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 10 is approved, 7-0. Item 11, to consider a Class D liquor license application for NP Mart 1 located at 5608 Ames Avenue.
Public hearing and vote on number 11 is today. Proponent or applicant, please, Mr. Kelly.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue, appearing today on behalf of the applicants for this NP Mart 1 on 5608 Ames Boulevard. The applicant is actually already the current licensee. What you guys are seeing here today is in addition of an LLC member, which happens to be his wife. Between the two of them, they have 9 locations across Nebraska, 22 years of licensure. They do have 5 violations on their record. Unfortunately, 3 of those 5 do happen to be at this location, but they are reputable, good operators. I have with me today the general manager and the security team if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any proponents here today on number 11? Seeing none. Any opponents?
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Portia Cabot, pastor of Clare Memorial United Methodist Church, 5544 Ames Avenue, on the corner of 56 and Ames, right across from the said location. To President Festerson and our City Council newly elected woman, Juanita Johnson, and to all of the City Council members, and especially those of you that are newly appointed. I come before you humbly as the watchful eye for those things that happen regarding alcohol between 52nd and 60th on Ames. I want to say that in light of all that has taken place in our city, and especially on this corner, that the church is doing all that it can to ensure the emotional, physical, and spiritual health and safety of the community. We are offering healthy food options. We are a USDA food distribution site on Fridays. We have a food pantry on the 3rd Saturday, a 35-plot community garden and orchard, as well as distributing bakery items from Hy-Vee on Tuesday through Saturday mornings. We're family-oriented activities, not only worship and Bible study, but we also have a Lot to Know party, VBS, and back-to-school bash. We even put up a basketball hoop where the young kids in the community will have some place to play. In that section, we're a little bit away from Benson Park as well as Fontenelle Park. And we made sure that there was access to COVID-19 testing and vaccinations, as well as resources, by partnering with the North Omaha Area Health Nora Free Clinic, the University of Nebraska Med Center Office for Reducing Health Disparities, the Empowerment Network, as well as the Hannah Avenue or the Hartman Avenue Neighborhood Association. Even though we have been experiencing many ups and downs during the present devastation of the health pandemic, which of many could have been handled differently regarding alcohol and its consumption, the relaxed state and city laws making alcohol easily accessible will hurt the metropolitan community in more ways than one. Health issues, fatal car accidents, domestic violence, as well as suicide, just to name a few. And the owner of the MP Mart tried to reorganize in 2019 after being fined for selling to a minor 3 times at this present location that you heard of, and for it to be erased, I believe that he went on and pleaded guilty in January of 2020 and was just slapped on the wrist with a small fine, and I gave you a letter that I submitted to the Liquor Control Commission in Lincoln. His statement about the neighborhood still stings me each and every time I think about it. He called this particular location one of the worst in Omaha, if not entire state. Yet he still sought to expand the said business and did so without proper approval, which is he's now seeking after completion of that work. And last year alone, this company has added a new manager to 3 other establishments in August and September where they came before you. Why is the question that I ask. Am I missing something, or is there another loophole that Attorney Kelly is advising his clients to do, that they keep adding someone on as an owner or a part owner, or even adding a manager? With regards to the drive-through curbside pickup of alcohol, the passage of LB 274, which allows the business to sell alcohol to a person in their vehicle if the alcohol is sold along with food, the vehicle is in park, the alcohol is placed in the trunk or the farthest area behind the driver if the vehicle does not have a trunk, as long as that area is not normally occupied by the driver or a passenger. Basically, alcohol cannot be transported in the same row of seats as the driver or any passenger if there is no trunk. Are you for real? If there is no trunk? Is the alcohol really being placed in the trunk through the drive-through? By whom? Are they just throwing it through the window and it's landing in the trunk? Or is the driver getting out the trunk, opening the trunk so that the alcohol can be placed in the trunk? I don't think so. To increase drinking and driving, we need to begin to look at this. And so we have to understand through research that DUI offenders are purchasing alcohol through these drive-through establishments. The odds of drinking in a vehicle prior to arrest were significantly higher from the drive-through. The law requires that the alcohol be placed in the trunk is almost certainly unenforceable due to the limited enforcement resources and capacity, which will lead to increased drinking and driving. Nebraska is the second worst self-employed DUI state in the country by a large margin. We already have problems with traffic accidents at 56 and Ames. Since there is no light at that incident, you can hear screeching of cars trying to turn onto Ames, as well as those that are trying to turn on 56, and a lot of people are going to this establishment. And then with the new DMV and the Res Care offices there is more traffic that is going on 56 and Ames. Therefore, I know you won't believe it, but I'm taking a neutral stand on this issue of the Class D application due to the fact that I know you're going to grant it to them anyway. And I'm getting tired of getting my heart broken every time I come up to speak and point things out. I realize that they already have the license. He's just adding some people, and we're going through the formality. But I want to make sure that you know I have gone in to the establishment, want to acknowledge the new manager who has tried to be neighborly, has come over, introduced herself, been by, supported some of the outreach ministries of the church, and appreciate that. There is spacious 4 aisles of food and different items that people can pick up, refrigeration as well as freezer space. So I'm happy to see that is going on. They are providing a needed service to the community of gasoline, as well as groceries and household items, as well as the alcohol and the tobacco products. But I was alarmed to find 3 gaming machines. And I realized that it's been authorized in Nebraska that you can have them, but I haven't had time to look over the Gaming Commission's guidelines. Therefore, I trust that all of you will do so as it relates to gaming, and especially for this community. And City Councilwoman Johnson, I ask that you would look deeper into this as we continue to do what we can. I'll be on the lookout. I appreciate the notice that this was taking place, but I take a neutral stand. Want to be neighborly and appreciate them trying to work on a relationship with me as well as with the community. But wanted you to be aware, especially those of you that are new, that you would read my letters. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Cavett. And I want to also thank you for not only your role in the Willow Brown ceremony recently, but also for your role during the pandemic, too. I know I saw you down there personally at many vaccination clinics for months and months, and especially in North Omaha, and your work was appreciated. Thank you.
I apologize. I didn't introduce. I have a summer intern, pastoral intern from Garrett Theological Seminary in Chicago, Illinois, Pauline Mboko Shango from the Congo.
Great. Welcome. Any opponents to number 11 that want to speak? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. Any questions from the council? Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
I move to deny the application.
I will second that. And I want to maybe ask a question of Mr. Kelly or the applicant if they are available.
Yes, Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue.
Mr. Kelly, I second that motion to give Councilmember Johnson the floor, but also this is a location where I have voted against in the past for some of the reasons we've talked about today. And we did talk yesterday. I think you gave me some information as to how they're addressing the violations that occurred there in the past. And I want to give you a chance to talk about that some more if you want, or answer any questions that came up. But for me, it was also an issue of density in the past. But having this motion on the floor in a second, I want to give you the floor to address anything you'd like to speak to.
Yeah, thank you. That denial request in second does take me by some surprise, Mr. President. This is not adding a location to your notation about density. There has not been a violation in 2020, respectfully to Reverend Cavett. The last violation was in 2019. I think we heard a lot of good things about the applicant and his operation and that of his wife as well. They have modern ID checks like you'd see at any major chain grocery store or convenience store. He's put a lot of investment into this property and his other properties in the community. He's a good employer. So to your my opportunity for rebuttal, I don't see where this is not adding to any density, right? This is simply a business transaction between him and his wife after taking out a loan to operate their business successfully. If this council decides to deny this license, then sure, then Mr. Arshad will be the sole owner and it'll carry on in its day-to-day activities as it is now. All the council would be doing is recommending denial to a business that wants to reorganize. So to that end, I don't know what a denial would accomplish respectfully.
Thank you. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Mr. Kelly, and you did kind of clarify that. I just wanted, we aren't approving a new liquor license. In fact, even if we deny, they will just continue to go on.
That's correct.
Operating with their liquor license. What we're voting on today is whether or not Mr. Nasir,
correct,
Mr. Nasir's wife, Miss Nasir,
yep,
could be on there as a liquor license holder. It's just whether or not his wife can be added.
Precisely, and she's a vetted licensee herself, has 100% ownership on the store in the same area.
And I looked on here and I see that it doesn't appear that she has any criminal background whatsoever.
There are speeding infractions amongst this couple. That is
Yes.
it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
other
right,
than
sure.
traffic violations, but nothing criminal.
No, nothing.
And so I guess what we're doing right now isn't deciding whether there should be a liquor license because there already is one.
That's correct.
So our denial will not revoke the liquor license. It's not going to remove their ability. It's just removing their ability to basically refinance a loan and the business, and we're just adding another person to the liquor license, right?
It simply hampers best business practice. So the concept that these sale to minors get absolved or taken off is not true either, because it's the same LLC.
Right. So
Right.
that was going to be, thank you. That was going to
Yeah.
be my next question, is this actually doesn't change the fact that there were three. So if there is a future violation, they run the risk of really losing their license at this
Right.
place.
And the other nuance, Councilmember Melton, would be you could also be denying the addition, which they've added 616 square feet to this property to add restrooms, to add stocking area, and to add an office space. So I guess technically you can deny that too, and then he can have a business practice where no alcohol will be stored or be permitted in that area, which is the case now because it's not officially added.
But it can be in the other section.
Yes.
So it just
yes.
seems like an irrational type of solution, is we're just denying half the business of having alcohol being stored. Now, and on my only concern is on the selling to minors. And I do know, it looks like, do they now have that, I don't know what the machine is called, but you take the license and it gets scanned or something?
Yep, so in preparation for today, I visited this store twice and purchased alcohol on the first occasion. And you give them your license, they scan the back of it, the barcode that we all have on our
Right.
Nebraska IDs, and then they give you a receipt, and then on that receipt, it shows your date of birth.
Okay.
So
And
the clerk knows on 2 occasions whether it's on the gun or on the receipt.
And they're asking ID from everybody. I know that there's no longer that if you look under 40, we're going to card you. Now it's just everybody gets carded.
Actually, that is their policy, is 40. If you're 40 or younger, they do card you. That's their policy.
Okay. Why they may want to change it to just carding everybody like Hy-Vee does,
Yeah, that would be a better practice.
just to make sure that you're not selling it to minor and treating everybody fairly and equally and the same.
Yep.
But that was my only concern. But I also think it might be better if you have another person that is responsible that can also be in there making sure that things are being done correctly. It was good to hear that the manager is actually reaching out to Pastor Cavett. So that I'm happy about that. And I appreciate Pastor Cavett's coming down and saying I'm neutral and giving us kind of the bad and the good, kind of just presenting the facts as they are. But our denial today, again, though, wouldn't stop the liquor license from happening. It just stops Miss Nasir from being added to it. So for that, I'm not going to support the denial just because I don't know that it makes any sense and it doesn't really accomplish anything. Is the reason.
Thank you.
Because it would just continue to operate as is. All right, thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm first going to start out by saying I'm really kind of disheartened because I thought I'd been carded recently because I was looking younger for some reason everywhere I go, but apparently not.
Under 40 is not bad.
I'll get you later. I had questions about the security too, so I think Ms. Melton just asked you that. I think you responded to it because when you and I talked, that was one of the concerns I had. And I know maybe in the last incident of sale to a minor in 2019 with the fine, but there have been some improvements made, obviously, since then, including the security system. So I just wanted to make sure for the record that some of those steps have been taken to make sure that sale to a minor in the future doesn't happen. So you've covered that, so I don't have any more questions for you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Yes, while security is a concern, as my fellow colleagues have mentioned, I also have to take into consideration that Reverend Portia Cavett is very well known in the community. She's on the bootstraps working. She's there daily, and she sees everything that goes on. And so for District 2, we are in an area where crime is really up. It's really up, and poverty is there, and alcohol abuse is an issue as well. So I can't take what she says lightly. She's mentioned that she believes, based on past history, that we would automatically cite on issuing the license. So she agreed to give the decision to us. So as her representative, I stand by her decision and her apprehension about having this liquor license. Thank you.
Thank you. See no further lights, or there is a light. Mr. Palermo, did you wish to be recognized? Looks like somebody ran through the lights there. All right.
That's you.
No, it came from the diocese there. Okay, no further lights. There is a motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. No. Melton.
No.
Palermo.
No.
Rowe.
No.
Bagley.
No.
Harding. Johnson.
No.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Second.
There's a motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Mr. President.
No.
Motion passed 5-2.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 12, to consider a Class D liquor license application for Speedy Mart 2883 located at 6003 Center Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. The applicant, please.
Good afternoon, John Dilsaver, 8400 I Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I represent Speedy Mart Western Oil 2. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great. Thank you. Any proponents on number 12? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 12 is approved, 7-0. Item 13, to consider a Class A liquor license application for Swine Dining Barbecue located at 12120 West Dodge Road.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Applicant, please.
Hello, my name's Chris Hodges. I'm here to represent Swine Dining at 12120 West Dodge Road. We're just applying for beer license.
I hear you answer questions.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Any other proponents on number 13? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval and state that the barbecue is excellent.
Thank you.
I grab it for the
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 13 is approved, 7-0. Item 14, to consider an addition application for Stories Coffee Company to add an outdoor area to their Class C liquor license located at 11432 Davenport Street. A is communication from the Planning Department regarding permits for the outdoor area.
Public hearing on vote on number 14 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom, Mr. Lautzenheiser. You're recognized.
Good afternoon. This is Daniel Lautzenheiser. Our establishment is at 11432 Davenport Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68154. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you. Are there any proponents to number 14? Seeing none. Any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 14 is approved, 7-0.
Thanks. Good luck.
Item 15, to consider a special designated liquor license application for the Down Under Lounge located at 3530 Leavenworth Street for an outdoor beer garden on July 17th, 2021 from 12 p.m. to 1 a.m., with music ending at 1 a.m., with an alternate date of Saturday, July 31st, 2021, from 12 p.m. to 1 a.m., with music ending at 1 a.m.
Public hearing on vote on number 15 is today. The applicant, please.
John Dozel, Council President, Bristol Council, 1109 North 49th Street, owner of Down Under Lounge.
Thank you. Any proponents on number 15 today? See none. Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. So is this going to be on the east side of the establishment? Where are you going to have the music at? Or is it inside?
The music will be outside. We own our own stage now and tents. And where we do it is, I don't know if you've been by recently, where we own our own food truck now. And we actually kind of baffle it a little bit, because with the back of the building, we set up the stage. How can I describe this? So the building goes north to south, and behind the building we set up the stage, and then the food truck is there, so it's kind of baffled in that sense. The east neighbor is Steve Jamrosi, who previously owned the bar and owned the property, and I purchased the building from him this year.
Okay. I wish you the best of luck. That's right in the middle of my district there, so hope you have it. And have you guys talked to the neighborhood groups around there at all? Have you had any comments at all from them?
My only problem is with I don't have problems with Family Dollar. I have problems with the gentleman that owns the building of Family Dollar. I have a great relationship with the general manager of the Family Dollar, and we work together. We've been doing, since I've purchased a bar or moved the bar from the previous location, we've done outside shows about 5 to 6. This is the first time we've gone outside later, and we're going to be adding a little bit more security. Well, we always have a security, plus myself, but we're a family-owned business, so my wife and I will be present and then having security. So we haven't had issues since the first year we're open, and we had problems with noise, and we corrected that with added security, bringing down our noise, and we actually monitor our decibels. Even when our music is inside, we monitor our decibels twice a night by our sound engineers.
Okay, thanks and you answered my next question with security, that you're way on top of that, and you're cognizant of the noise issues that go on as well, so I wish you success. I'm glad to hear that you're addressing concerns that I would have had, but I read the attach and then listening to you here today that you are right on top of that with security, and you're going to keep that in mind, so I wish you the best of luck.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So the one thing I would ask in follow-up to that question is, it is fairly unusual that we have music to 1 a.m. For outdoor events. It's not unheard of, but pretty unusual. More common, we see it going to midnight when it comes before the council, and it sounds like this would be the first time you're doing it, so I don't know if you have any previous experience with any concerns with this particular event, but it sounds like
with
there have
going
been
to
some-
1 a.m.,
some
this
noise.
would be the first time. I've had, we use 6 SDLs every year since I've been in business, and we've gone to 11. This is kind of I would say a pilot program. I want to see how it goes. Musicians have asked me if we could go later, and I want to see how it works. If it works, I'll try to do more. If it doesn't, we won't do more. But we'll be prepared to handle it properly and have it, everything in place, the security, have the right decibels, and have it appropriate.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that to the attention of new council members. It is fairly unusual to do 1. Midnight would be more common, but if there's not concern, I'll take the inclination of the council. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And sir, it's my, I have some thoughts on the 1 o'clock ending as well. What's the closest residential house that you have to the bar?
It is owned by Steve Jamrosi, who previously owned a bar that, what's the word for him? He's a in and out resident.
Okay, so besides him, how about the next closest house?
The next closest house is empty. The ones behind, we have a good relationship with the new owner that's right behind us. And the next property is 2 rental properties owned by Dave Barflett. And I've known Dave Barflett since 1985, and he has not brought anything to my attention over any of our, actually the residents sit out in the parking lot and listen to the music. That's behind their apartment complex. It's not an apartment complex, it's 2 houses that don't have any grass behind it, and they all park behind there. And so they sit outside.
Okay, but like the president mentioned, normally these SDLs go till 11, and if you didn't have any problems before, I don't know why you'd be willing to press it and go to 1. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I don't do it for the bars in my neighborhood that apply for SDLs. So and of course, this is District 3, I believe, right? I won't approve it to 1 o'clock. I would be willing to approve it to 11, but I will leave that up to the council member of the district, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for those council members' knowledge, we can't amend a license at this point to change it from 1 a.m. to midnight or something else, should you so choose. But Mr. Bagley, I think your light's on.
Thanks, Mr. President. So to clarify, as a new council member, can I make a motion to do it till midnight? Okay. And John, I think you understand the concerns of being new to the council, but I trust my colleagues on how they've dealt with this in the past. I'm not questioning your ability to run your business and recognizing that there needs to be security in the noise levels as well. And listen to my colleagues. I would support a motion to give you that time until midnight to have the music played on midnight.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to approve the license with music ending at midnight. I don't see any further lights. Roll call, please.
Melton. Yes. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearing on agenda items 16 through 19 were held on June 15th. Is there a motion? Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 16 through 19 are approved, 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items number 20 through 52 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. For those in the chamber first, any proponents?
Removing 30 votes.
And I should note, Mr. Harding wants to remove number 35, correct? So that is not on consent. We'll take that separately. 20 through 34 and 36 through 52 right now. Any proponents on those items? Seeing none, any opponents? We do have an applicant by... Okay, are you coming down, sir?
I'd like to speak as an opponent of agenda item 45. And my name is Mark Brannon, B-R-A-N-N-E-N, 6915 Evans Street.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
This is a proposal to spend over $500,000, award the bid to ME Collins Contracting to start work to revitalize NP Dodge Park. This is not to get the soccer fields going or get the softball fields going. This is the beginning of the project to simply grade the swales in between the soccer fields. That's over $500,000 towards a project that I see no point. In the last 10 years, summer 2011, 2018, and September 2019, NP Dodge was flooded. The soccer fields were not usable. The softball fields were not usable. Brooke Bench, former director of Parks and Recreation in September 2019 told KETV, it's really time to rethink the long-term vision of Dodge Park. For us to rebuild those fields, it's going to be an even bigger project than it's ever been. The other 2 times that we fixed it up, for it only did get flooded again. But we're also seeing, this is Brook Bench again, but we're also seeing a trend that happens so many times, that we're kind of waving the white flag and saying, it's time to do something else at Dodge Park. He mentioned trails, bike paths, reinvigorating the wetlands, the natural plants that have already taken root there, and that what we are spending $500,000 to begin the work. And this will be the first of the projects that you will see come across regarding NP Dodge Park, and it will account to millions. And then it will flood again. On March 5th, 2021, John Chapman of WOWT said that after interviewing new Parks Director Kalsevich, said city officials know the park is prone to flooding, but they're hoping that they won't see anything like this for a long time. That's a big hope. And then also at the end of the story, right now, city officials don't have a price tag for the revitalization of the park. We should have a price tag before we spend $500,000. We should know what the final price tag is. But before that, we should take a look at whether this is the best use of that land. I appreciate your consideration. And then just another thing in there, in the bid, if you look up the bid, it's a requirement that as they're laying down the fields, they use inorganic fertilizer. So if you're going to go through with this asinine project, please do not use inorganic fertilizer that, again, is just going to flood right back into the river above our water treatment plant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to note that we've talked about this for quite a number of years with Brook Bench, and I'm on the Parks Committee. I just wanted to make it known that these are funds that will be reimbursed by FEMA because it was damage caused by the flooding. So the city will get reimbursed by FEMA for these. We actually attempted to use the FEMA money to rebuild soccer fields. Actually, we looked at doing it at Tranquility because we had the land and it would make sense to maybe replace the fields. But according to the FEMA funds and what we can use the funds for, we couldn't use the funds in a different location. So we can only use the funds at NP Dodge Park. And due to the limited number of fields that we really do have in the city, that is why this is being done at NP Dodge Park. So I just wanted to let the rest of the council know who wasn't on Parks Committee, the extent of that we've talked about this, looked at other ways that we could do it, and we are limited by what FEMA will allow us to do. So we did look at whatever other options there were. There really isn't a whole lot else we can do with the land because it is prone to the flooding, so the uses of that land are very limited as well. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background information for the council.
Thank you. And Mr. Kalsevich, I'll ask a few questions myself as well, as MP Dodge is in my district. And the testifier is correct. There was a period of time where its future was in question, and Mr. Bench, the previous parks director, felt it might be a better option to do something different there and restore some habitats and have some trails instead of what had been historically the use, which includes the marina and soccer fields and softball fields and other things. Could you address some of the questions that came up in terms of the future and the timeline and the decisions being made, and also, that anticipated budget?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Council members, Matt Kalsevich, Parks and Recreation Director, 1819 Farnham. Councilmember Melton is correct. We explored other opportunities or options that are typically available with FEMA-provided funding, but in this case, it did not meet the criteria to go anywhere other than NP Dodge Park. We did receive quite a bit of feedback from the regular user groups that we've partnered with there over the years about their interest in returning to that location. And again, wanted to maximize our opportunity to restore a location that had received so much positive feedback about when it is at its full function, is very well received and supported by these user groups from the community. In regards to additions to that space, there are some things being evaluated in terms of the larger park property and the integration of nature trails. We also have a walking path and some other things that are replacing areas that we decided not to refurbish, such as the camping area. And there are also some long-term discussions that will have to be layers of assessment as far as resetting the park and then exploring some other mitigation options. As far as the marina, that is certainly a main aspect of the park and is one of our largest revenue generating programs, in addition to obviously a service that's been taken advantage of at the highest level and almost to its maximum for the last several years, and has a long history of being a valuable aspect of that park and of the community as a whole. So we see the project in the end in terms of total reimbursement landing in the $2.5 to $3 million category. Again, field restoration and activity traditional to what it's existed in the past, including the return of the pavilion that was initially in a spot that was flooded. We've worked with FEMA to put it in a location where the flooding possibility of that facility when it's rebuilt will be almost zero. So again, we're trying to do some things in regards to some of the historic flooding challenges that are going to make it a much more stable existence, and again, respond to the groups that have been our long-term partner and shown their interest in having this resource through FEMA be rededicated to that park.
Thank you. And when might those fields be expected to be available again?
So as early as potentially spring of next year, depending on the winter and the growing season, and hitting some timelines that we have in place now about getting seed down before the end of this year. Again, best case scenario for us in terms of availability and weather, but we are trying to move on that timeline to get things back up and available as soon as next year.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on items 20 to 34 and 36 to 52? Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 20 through 34 and 36 through 52 are approved, 7-0. Item 35, a resolution to approve the application of Daniel M. Goodwin Jr. for a lease of city property adjacent to 3116 North 24th Street for a patio with stairs.
This item was postponed from the June 15th meeting, and public hearing was continued, so I think I need to open the public hearing on it and continue that discussion. Proponents, please. Any opponents? Are you coming down, sir? Yes, sir. Okay.
All right, I'm Sherman Wells, 4718 Kansas Avenue. Really not as much an opponent, it's just a question. So I know this building used to be a barbershop, and I was just wondering, so they want a patio and stairs. I wanted to know exactly what was going in the building, and is it going to be a benefit to the business district of 24th Street? That's all I was wanting to know.
Okay. We'll ask that question here in a minute.
All right.
Any other opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was on the consent agenda, and maybe the applicant probably wasn't aware that I was going to ask to have it pulled off, but since it was pulled off the last time, I thought we should consider it on its own here today. So, and I'll answer the gentleman's question, Mr. Wells, who's just up there. The owner of the building is also leading the efforts with the BID in the area too. So this is kind of a routine application or request that's being made by Public Works and Planning. I know my colleague had some questions about it. I hope over the last 2 weeks maybe she's gotten those responses. And if I don't know that I see her light on, so I don't know if you had any more questions, Ms. Johnson, but if not, I'll just move for approval.
Second.
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a gentleman courtesy. I thought we were making motions based upon, this is in my district, is that correct? Okay. So I will go ahead and move that we go ahead with this. Thank you for helping me out with that.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 35 is approved, 7-0. Item 53, a resolution to approve the City of Omaha Park rules.
This item was also postponed from the June 15th council meeting, and we did continue public hearing, which can continue today. So anyone who's prepared to speak to this item is welcome to do so as either a proponent or an opponent. And we do have someone registered by Zoom who's welcome to do that. But I would say, for everyone's knowledge up front, that we do intend to lay this over until July 13th as work continues on what we believe will be an amendment to what was proposed that will better address some of the transportation and trail issues we heard from last time, and that I think has the interest of the council. So having said that, I will go ahead and open, again, the public hearing for those who are here today and want to speak. Anyone in the chambers as proponents?
Thank you. Sarah Johnson, 2316 North 52nd Street. I just wanted to thank Matt Kalsovich and the council for being very reasonable and measured with passing something that could be really impactful for our community. And I got a great email from Director Kalsovich today. We're actually going to meet on Friday. I just wanted to say, sometimes I'm here as a contrarian, but I'm just excited about the direction this is going, and I'm grateful to all of you for letting it be laid over until it is thoughtfully put together. But I'm excited about the direction it's going, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents in the chambers? Seeing none, we do have one opponent registered by Zoom. Jeannie Miller, you're recognized.
Hi. Okay, hold on a sec. There we go. All right. Mr. President and council members, good afternoon and thank you. My name is Jean Miller, 7208 North 125th Street. I've submitted a written statement in opposition to one part of the proposal. Specifically, I don't like the idea of e-scooters on Omaha trails. The Omaha World Herald also had an excellent summary of points opposing e-scooters. That was June 25th, if you had an opportunity to read it. If not, I refer you back to that. I'll let you know that, Mr. Palermo, I grew up in your district many, many years ago, and I walked everywhere. Today, I am still an avid walker. I'm a trail master for a local walking club. I am very familiar with the Benson, Dundee, Old Market, Midtown Crossing, and Blackstone districts. I lay out trails that range from 3 miles to 6 miles. I see all of the very active areas in Omaha, including the places where the scooters are now. Right now, they're not behaving. They're on the sidewalks. They throw their scooters anywhere when they're done, when they're bored, or when they run out of charge. And now we're going to allow these people on the trails? I would hope not. Trails are used primarily for exercise, walkers and with or without dogs or without children, bicyclists. I can see e-bikes. That makes sense to me because that requires a bit of exercise. Scooters aren't exercise. People who are disabled can't ride a scooter. So, people who are disabled might be able to use an e-bike with modifications. That's good. I like that. E-scooters are not a form of transportation. It's a form of entertainment. When I read in the World Herald last year, the proponents of scooters said that they're final mile transportation options. Your trails are longer than a mile. I happen to know that. I've walked them. I don't think scooters are a fit on the trails. They're not exercise. They're not transportation. I would ask that you consider that and strike that portion of the Omaha Parks proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm not going to close public hearing because I'll suspect we want to continue it for the 13th, but I will recognize Councilman Harding.
That might have been on since the last one.
Previous
so.
light? Okay. I see no other lights. Is there a motion?
I'll move to lay it over till July 13th.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 7-0. Item 54, a resolution to approve the termination of the franchise agreement with CenturyLink as of April 30th, 2021, and upon a settlement agreement, payment by CenturyLink to the city in the sum of $364,191. Cable Television Access Corporation Board recommends approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 54 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 54 is approved, 7-0. Item 55, a resolution that the City Council urges the Douglas County Purchasing Department to prioritize selection and implementation of an electronic bidding platform.
Public hearing on vote on number 55 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. Eric, if you could come down, had a couple of questions, please. Thank you. No, we talked at length at pre-council today a little bit about this and the scheduling of the implementation of the electronic bidding. I just wanted to talk a little bit more today here at our meeting on the schedule, but also leading up to and the process by which this has been going through. So has the selection process been something that has, is there public bidding on it, or how's I know that you're in discussions with some vendors as to a program or a platform that might be used to have electronic bidding responses.
Right.
So could you walk me through the process to how we've gotten to now?
Yep, you bet. Eric Carlson, Purchasing Director, 1819 Farnham. What I will say is that the couple vendors we're looking at, we are looking to leverage current what we call cooperative purchasing agreements that allow us to waive a bidding process. So we're just basically.
I'm sorry, could you
That's a
speak a little
cooperative purchasing agreements, which basically allow us to waive the formal bidding process. So we can identify a platform without having to go through the formal bidding process. It's basically a competitively bid contract, and as a member of that particular cooperative agreement, we can utilize those contracts, and it's just a way of kind of leveraging the Joint Powers Act within the state statutes. And so what we've done with that is we've looked at a couple platforms, and specifically we've identified a couple that I think give us the functionality and what we need, I think, as a purchasing agency in support of city and county. And so right now we're kind of looking through and just kind of vetting to make sure that everything that they provide is going to give us what we need. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is make a decision and move forward and start planning and implementing and finding out that it's not giving everything we need. So in that pursuit, I've requested a draft copy of the agreement so that we can kind of take a look and see what the legal ramifications will be for the city and Douglas County when we do enter into the agreement, so we make sure there's no red flags. Also make sure what sort of support in terms of training, implementation, and things that we need to make sure that our vendors can be a part of the process and not get left behind and be able to participate in the online bidding process as we move forward.
So will the approval of that then come before the council?
One of the things we talked about is possibly having the contract through .com. And then having it, basically funded back to the departments from .com. If we do go through with the contract that would come before our city council, we'll take that. That's something yet to be determined, I guess, to answer that question.
And I guess maybe I missed part of this, but will the county be using the same platform?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
As
so-
a joint department,
Yeah.
all departments will be utilizing the same platform.
So again, if it would come before us for approval, it would also have to go, if it doesn't go through the .com process, if it comes individually, if you will, both council will have to approve it and the county commissioner, or county board would have to approve it as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks for walking us up to now. So then walk us forward if you could and talk a little bit about schedule.
In terms of schedule, just the experience that I've heard from other folks that have utilized these types of platforms, as well as some of the vendors we're talking to, once we identify the platform and get a contract in place, generally speaking, they're looking at about a 6 to 8 week process in terms of rollout to launch on the platform. We obviously want to make sure there aren't any issues before we go live. We need to identify any changes that vendors need to make in their processes as well as our own so that we can communicate and train internally and externally. But in general, 6 to 8 weeks probably from the time that we sign the contract before we can go live.
Okay, and again, when we talked about 6 to 8 weeks, this morning in calendar terms, if you will, probably late fall?
That's what I'm trying to target, absolutely. I want to meet that as soon as possible, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yes, we've spoke at length, sometimes meeting after meeting where we would have a company before us, sometimes a new company, sometimes an old company, but nonetheless, usually the lowest and best bid. But unfortunately, we weren't able to accept that bid, and they would show up to protest and ask why. And usually, a lot of them had paperwork, or they had different items that didn't have an initial, or prices were left off, or certain forms. And to me, they were all minor. Because if we had an electronic bidding system, which if you've been paying attention over the course of the past 4 years, I've been asking for one. And the reason is because this is what we do. This is how we serve our constituents, by taking that lowest and best bid, sometimes the best bid, sometimes just the lowest bid. But we weren't able to provide that because we didn't have an electronic bidding system that would otherwise not let you go forward in the process if you forgot something or some part of the bid wasn't there. So we actually cost the city, we cost ourselves a lot of money by not having this in place. And we cost a lot of the departments headache over trying to find another bidder. But it's not just the city, it's the county as well. We are merged in the purchasing department in the city and the county, if you're not aware. So the county had their issues as well. So I'm glad that all of us that have brought this up over the years, we've finally gotten to this point, because it's very important to make sure that we get possibly the lowest and the best bid.
Right.
So
Agreed.
thank you, and keep working on it. We'll be paying attention.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I'm supportive of this item too for all those same reasons. And I see it as a companion piece to what is number 88 today, which addresses one of the latest, maybe most high-profile protest bids we had with our healthcare bids and those potential vendors, where it became apparent that the difference between a $50 personal and company check might have put at risk, a multi-million-dollar contracts with multi-million-dollar companies. And so what number 88 will do is seek to clarify that as a minor defect and clarify other things that are not minor defects. So we have some better direction in the future on all these things. But that being said, the best way to address this overall is going to be to do something like it's described in number 55. And so that's the nudge we're providing today. And appreciate you being here this morning and this afternoon to talk about what is taking place on it. And it does sound encouraging.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Begley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 55 is approved, 7-0. Item 56, an ordinance levying a special tax and assessment on all lots and pieces of real estate within Street Improvement District 6884 to cover the cost of constructing and improving Nicholas Street from North 87th Street west to its terminus in Portland Cement Concrete.
Public hearing on number 56 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 57, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Nebraska Preparedness Partnership in the amount of $89,500 and to authorize the funding for such agreement from the fiscal year 2020 State Homeland Security Grant Award to provide enhanced security of critical infrastructure assets.
Public hearing on number 57 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 58, an ordinance to approve an interlocal agreement with Douglas County for booking and detention of pre-adjudication juveniles under the age of 18 with a cost of $75 per year for 2 years.
Public hearing on number 58 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 59, an ordinance to establish a new Class A flammable liquid storage district to be known as District Number A-161, located at 4428 South 140th Street for Avenue 26 Holdings, LLC.
Public hearing on 59 is today. Are there any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
One public hearing can be held for items 60 through 62 for the 2021 annexation package. Item 60, Whispering Ridge West, SID 549, located southeast of 177th and West Maple Road. Item 61, North Ridge, SID 560, and a portion of the Grove Village Point Lodging, SID 438, located northeast of 186th and Pacific Streets. Item 62, the Villas of Omaha at Butler Ridge and adjacent land, located northwest and southwest of 156th and Butler Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearings on items 60, 61, and 62 are today. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. President, members of council, thank you. Troy Anderson, Deputy Chief of Staff, City of Omaha Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, Suite 300. For those of you that have not been part of the annexation process before, welcome. I'm going to try to walk through this a little bit slower than usual. So if at any point in time you have questions, feel free to interrupt. But again, I'm going to try to walk through this a little bit slower than usual. Number one, we begin the annexation process every year with 3 goals in mind. Number one is to eliminate islands. If you've ever looked at the city's corporate boundary map, you'll notice that there are areas within that corporate boundary map, we'll call them islands, that are not included in the city's corporate limits. These areas cause disruption in service provisions and any number of other issues or reasons. So one of the things we do every year is look to eliminate islands within the city's corporate limits. The second goal is that the package as a whole has to be revenue positive. We don't want to add additional burden to the taxpayers and the constituents of the city that are currently within the city's corporate limits. So every year that we present a package over the 10-year period, it has to be net positive as a package as a whole. The third goal is that it cannot compromise public safety. So with that being said, we begin the process in early January. SIDs have to report all of their financials by December 31st of the previous year. So in January, we start walking through all of those financials. We walk through a very systematic, very analytical evaluation of all of those SIDs. This year, we started with a comprehensive list of 133 SIDs. We then go through the process of eliminating SIDs that are not either adjacent or adjacent plus one. What we mean by that is we cannot annex SIDs that are not adjacent to the city's corporate limits. The reason why we say adjacent plus one is because there may be a scenario by which an adjacent SID can also lead to connectivity of an adjacent SID to that. So, but SIDs that don't have that connectivity that's required by state law, we immediately throw out. We also then walk through the process of eliminating SIDs where sales, restaurant, and or hotel tax is not generated by the SID, and as a result of that, have at least 2 of the following: a levy greater than 60, net debt greater than 3 million, or a debt ratio greater than 4%. Those three indicators have historically been good indicators to give us kind of a step forward in doing a deeper dive into what the actual cost to provide city services are. We know that those three benchmarks, exceeding the debt levy, exceeding the debt, or the debt ratio, generally does not get us to a net positive annexation package. So by walking through that process, we reduced that list down to 25 SIDs this year for a full service evaluation, call it the short list. We distribute those SIDs we distribute that list of SIDs out to all of the city departments and give them an opportunity to provide us with feedback on providing cost to city services over a 10-year period. As a result of the full service evaluation, there were 3 areas that are being proposed for annexation this year, totaling 103 acres of land. They're a combination of residential, commercial, and mixed use, and they are as follows: SID 549, Whispering Ridge West, SID 560, North Ridge, and there's an area that is, it's an adjacent area, so it's not an SID. It is an adjacent area west of 156th along Butler Avenue, known as the Villas at Butler Ridge. The package will bring in approximately 248 new residents. That information is based on the 2010 census data. We know that that number is slightly larger. Unfortunately, we don't have 2020 census data as of yet, so that's the most comprehensive factual residential data that we have at this point. Increasing Omaha's population to an estimated 479,000 people and maintaining Omaha's rank as one of the top 40 largest cities in the U.S. The city will also see an increase of approximately $90 million in new valuation. The package has a debt ratio of 1.54% and, as previously stated, is revenue positive. The next part I'll go 10-year financial projections. That information has been provided to you. I won't belabor that here. There's some numbers and deals with property tax estimates, sales, restaurant, hotel tax estimate, wheel tax estimates, et cetera. If you have any questions on that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions on that. But otherwise, all SIDs will see reduced property taxes. The average property tax reduction for the proposed package is around $237 per 100,000 valuation. The decrease per SID is as follows. SID 549, Whispering Ridge West, will see a reduction of $92.77 per 100,000 valuation. SID 560, North Ridge, will see a reduction of $382.77 per 100,000 valuation. I mentioned earlier this morning, the villas at Butler Ridge will see a tax increase. However, that's one property owner. It is a multifamily residential apartment complex. The tenants will not see, as they are not owner-occupied residents. Public safety will not be compromised. The areas have low 911 call volumes today. We already serve the area by fire protection. There's no parkland included in the annexation package, and there are no trails, which would ultimately lead to park maintenance costs and future improvements to those. But this package does not include any parkland or trails. There are only 3 lane miles being added to the city's road network, and there are no unimproved streets in any of the areas being considered. All areas, if not already served, will immediately receive all essential city services, including fire, police, solid waste removal, street maintenance, and snow removal. There was an informational open house held on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. There were only 2 residents that attended that. Neither of those 2 residents were in opposition to the annexation. They just had a few questions about the process. This item was also heard by the planning board earlier this month, and they recommended approval of the annexation. With that being said, we also ask for your approval of the annexation package. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents here today on items 60, 61, and 62? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. There we go. Mr. Anderson, thank you for your work. You don't have to come back up. Just comments. You just gave me the same comments I've heard for the last few years, and I'm going to give you the same ones for those that are tuning in. So your three priorities and again, thanks for you and your staff and everybody that helped within the city for this annexation package that I think I've seen every year the past 4 years. I just wonder what the city would look like if we put all this time and effort into building up instead of out. You mentioned islands. We're always going to have islands. We're going to run out of land in 20 to 25 years. So there will always be islands. There are going to be SIDs that never get swallowed up by the city. And we talk about the package as a whole. There's always going to be net negative SIDs within the package to put them together to make it look presentable. But what we don't hear is some of them that we've annexed 10 plus years ago, they're still net negative. So I understand why we do the package as a whole. And I think you mentioned compromising public safety as well. If you look at how many police officers were short, if you look at how stretched thin the fire department already is when a call gets dispatched to a certain district and another firehouse has to backfill, and then another firehouse has to backfill, and they just don't get that downtime that they need, and the 77 police officers were short, if that's not compromising public safety, I don't know what is for police and fire. And like I mentioned in pre-council, we just got done knocking doors a few months ago. We all did. And if you didn't hear about, we want our roads to be better, we want our parks to be better, we want our trash picked up, the way we do that is not by expanding westward, especially when we haven't filled these spots. And it's certainly not any direct relationship to the employees who are out there working as hard as possible. We just don't have the employees. So even if it's 1 lane mile, well, you got lane miles in North and South Omaha that you just haven't got to because you don't have the people. We still don't have the people. So I know why we annex. It's a luxury that whoever is in charge of this city will have, but it's going to end, and somebody's going to pay the price at the end. So I understand, we annex, we give you some property tax relief, but at what point do you take away enough from the citizens you have here, especially in the urban core, that you finally say, that's enough? So I don't know if I've voted against every annexation package in the last 4 years, but I'll bet it's been most of them. Maybe I voted for some of the net positive ones. We got a couple weeks to figure this out and ask them questions. And if you're talking about islands and you're talking about packages, the package of a whole, and you're talking about actually compromising public safety, I would ask my council members to do their research over the next 2 weeks and come back and tell me why they think westward expansion is the best thing for the city of Omaha. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I have a couple questions for you too. I have always supported what I would call measured annexation, which is steady growth and growth that's contiguous and growth that demonstrates we have city services covered, and also is a financial positive to the rest of the city when it does occur when we talk about packages. And this one is the smallest I can recall in recent time, which I think is appropriate right now. I guess my question is, when you were going through the analysis this year, was it more your sense we were trying to catch up with current city services, streets and trash and police, as Mr. Palermo discussed? Or was it more a calculation about debt ratios of the surrounding SIDs not being favorable, or a combination of those things?
Yeah, so to answer your question and maybe address some of Councilman Palermo's comments, we're specifically looking at the financials, right? So when we say that it's net positive for the city, what we're saying is that given the revenue that is being generated by these SIDs or the adjacent areas, which could be a combination of ad valorem tax, sales tax, occupation tax, whatever revenue is being contributed, how does that stack up against the cost to provide city services? police, fire, solid waste removal, so on and so forth, right? Street maintenance, park maintenance, the list goes on, right? So all we're doing is comparing sort of the revenue that's being made available to the cost of providing city services. So as a budgetary conversation, from a budgetary conversation, the number of police officers are budgeted. The number of fire officers are budgeted. The number of public works personnel are budgeted. I'd have to defer to each of the department heads as to, and much like you had, Councilman Palermo had just kind of chimed in on it, I'd have to defer to each of the department heads to kind of provide color on why they're not able to fill those positions, but it's not for a lack of revenue that is being generated by the SID. So as part of our evaluation process, we're simply taking from what we understand as the debt ratios that the SIDs have compared to the providing the cost of city services. So to maybe elaborate a little bit more on why this package was probably as small as it was this year. Out there in the county right now, there's only a half dozen or so non-residential SIDs that are generating more revenue than just ad valorem tax revenue. And those SIDs are fairly young. They were just created several years ago, and so the debt that they assumed when they were created hasn't been paid down to a point yet where it makes fiscal sense for us to annex those SIDs, which are then, again, net positive in order to respond to perhaps a more expense intense SID, which is maybe a single family resident that is just generating ad valorem tax. And so I actually was thinking a little bit about your question this morning, and I kind of went to the drawing board a little bit and just came up with at least some maybe initial thoughts to help kind of show why this kind of plays out the way it does, and maybe introduce a little bit why the complexity is of trying to answer your question about how do some become more fiscally responsible than others. So I kind of came up with a 4-square matrix here that evaluates sort of that revenue that an SID or an adjacent area is generating versus the cost of city services. So up in the top left corner, you'll notice put in the category of large non-residential, i.e. industrial or commercial SIDs, right? These are high revenue generating SIDs, but they have very little cost of city services, right? The improvements that these large SIDs, these large non-residential IDs are generating, the private improvements are private streets. They're private parking lots. They have private open space and amenities that they then are responsible to maintain. Very little cost upon annexation. In the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see sort of an SID that generates very little revenue in comparison versus a high cost of providing city services. Small 1- and 2-family residential SIDs, while they only generate property tax revenue, there are a lot of public improvements, there are a lot of public streets, public parks, et cetera, and subsequently public services, library, police, fire, public improvement maintenance, solid waste removal, so on and so forth. So this begins to kind of hopefully maybe continue to paint the picture of why we try to take a balanced approach every year, that there may be some SIDs that are generating more revenue compared to the cost of city services, which allows us then to annex those residents that are living in smaller single-family SIDs that cost the city more money to provide essential city services to, but at the same time, while they're out in the county, they don't have representation. They're not able to vote, right? But at the same time, they're driving on our roads, they're frequenting our parks and our libraries and so on and so forth. So it's a balance of that tax base, making sure that all folks within the area are appropriately represented. hopefully that answers your question, probably more so than.
Thank you. I see Mr. Palermo has his light on, so I'll yield the floor to him.
See, you had to get me going, didn't you? Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, again, I get it. It's property tax relief. But there's other ways to go about property tax relief, and it's not always annexation of net negative SIDs. And you're exactly right. You would have to ask the directors of why they don't have the employees in place. But if your boss says, we need annexation, make it happen, they're going to make it happen. That's the way it works, right? If your boss says make it work, you make it work. You're here because your boss said, go down here, we need this annexation package. Again, thanks for your work, but this is why I love the internet. If you pull up the hotline report, I'll just pull up last year's, and if you go through the top 5, there are issues that you would have across the city. Trash, potholes, snow, weed. These are what you're adding to the list, to the employees that we don't have. I understand the financial part, and this is a small package, right? We've had some ones with 6 or 7 SIDs before, and again, they were grouped together, so they made it look like they made sense. Now, again, I know why we do it. Just asking my colleagues to keep in mind what they've just heard from the door. And we got 2 weeks. I'll remind everybody in 2 weeks when I have more comments. So thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you. No further lights. Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items. Items 63 through 88 do not require a public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on an agenda for consideration.
Second, roll call.
Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:31.